My daughter told me through tears, Auntie hit me because I got a better grade than her son. I didn't say a word. I took her to urgent care. And later I started doing what made my brother's wife regret everything she had done. I used to believe I had a good read on people. I could tell when someone was hiding something or when a smile had teeth behind it. But when it came to my brother's wife, I missed every sign. Not just once. Over and over again. Her name is Valerie. She married my brother Chris 8 years ago, and from the start she had a way of making everything seem like a performance. She smiled at the right times, offered to help at family dinners, asked about my work, and always made a show of giving me a birthday presents with way too much ribbon. But it always felt staged. There was something behind it I couldn't place. I should have tried harder to figure it out. He never liked Mia. I know that now. Back then, I told myself I was imagining it. The way her smile would stiffen when Mia talked about her science fair, or the way she'd interrupt her halfway through a story. Valerie's son Liam is a sweet kid, but school isn't his thing. He likes video games and bikes and anything that doesn't involve books. Which is fine. But Valerie always seemed uncomfortable about the fact that Mia loved learning. I think she saw my daughter's curiosity as a threat to her own kid. As if Mia's achievements somehow cast a shadow over Liam. The competition wasn't real. Mia never bragged, never compared, but Valerie made it real. So I let it go. I wanted peace in the family. I wanted to believe that, deep down, Valerie just didn't know how to connect with her. I convinced myself that things were fine. Until that Tuesday. I'd had a late meeting at work and asked Chris if Mia could stay with them after school. She'd been there before and nothing had ever seemed off. When I came to pick her up, she looked tired, but I thought it was just a long day. She got in the car quietly, stared out the window the whole drive, and when I handed her her favorite sandwich from the deli, she just held it. I kept glancing over, asking if everything was okay. She nodded, said she was just tired. At home, she headed for the bathroom to shower, but then she paused at the door. That's when I saw it. Just a quick flash of skin where her shirt lifted. A purple mark, deep and ugly, spreading under her ribs. I asked her what happened. At first she froze. I could see her calculating. Then the tears came fast and hard. And so did the truth. She told me she had gotten her science quiz back that day. 98%. She was proud, and she should have been. She said she showed it to Liam after school, hoping they could talk about it, maybe even study together next time. Apparently Valerie had seen the paper. She made a comment like, "Nice, but science doesn't really matter unless you're going to be a doctor." Mia shrugged it off, but Liam made some joke about how he'd never get that kind of grade. Mia laughed, not at him, just nervously. That's when Valerie told her not to act like she was better than anyone. Later, when Mia went to get her backpack from the hallway, Valerie followed her. Told her she needed to stop showing off. That it was rude to make her cousin feel stupid. And then she hit her. Flat across the side. Not a slap. Not a push. A hit. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't ask questions. I just grabbed my keys, told Mia to get in the car, and drove straight to urgent care. They checked her over, documented the bruises, and asked if she felt safe at home. I told them what happened. A nurse quietly slipped away and made a call. By the time we left, the report was already filed. That night my phone rang 5 times. Chris. I didn't answer. I sat at the kitchen table while Mia slept in her room, rereading the discharge notes. Suspected non-accidental injury. Abuse concern flagged. I thought about every comment Valerie had made over the years. Every time she said Mia was too intense, too sensitive, too smart for her own good. I thought about how I had let her babysit. I thought about how I had let my daughter believe that was normal. I stayed up until morning. I wasn't going to let this disappear. I wasn't going to settle for an apology or a family meeting. Valerie had crossed a line, and I was going to make sure she never came near my daughter again. What I didn't know then was how deep this would go. How much would come to light. How many people had been staying silent just like I had. But now I had no doubt. I was going to destroy her. I didn't call Chris the next morning. I didn't owe him that. Instead I called a lawyer. Her name was Dana Marks, and she wasn't cheap, but I wasn't playing defense. I wanted someone who understood custody, domestic assault, and how to handle a case when the abuser wasn't a spouse, but a relative. I explained everything, and when I mentioned that the urgent care had already filed a report, Dana paused and asked me if I wanted to press charges. Yes. I wanted Valerie prosecuted. I wanted her to lose everything. We met that same day. Dana walked me through next steps, getting Mia's statement formally recorded, contacting Child Protective Services, requesting a restraining order, and preparing for potential pushback from my brother's side of the family. She didn't sugarcoat anything. It was going to be ugly. But she also told me something I wasn't prepared for. This wasn't going to be her first case involving someone like Valerie. That night I finally answered Chris's call. I told him to come over without her. He showed up looking like he hadn't slept either. He sat down at the kitchen table like he always did, but I didn't offer coffee. I didn't smile. I told him everything Mia had told me. At first he just stared at me. Then he laughed like it couldn't be real. He said Valerie wouldn't do that. That Mia must have misunderstood. Maybe she fell. Maybe she bruised herself playing with Liam. I handed him a copy of the urgent care report. His hands shook when he read the words, "Suspicion of child abuse." He asked me if I was really going to involve the police. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. They were already involved. He left after 10 minutes. No goodbye. 2 days later, CPS came to our door. Routine check. They talked to Mia privately. I waited in the hallway pretending to scroll on my phone, listening for signs that she was okay. Later, the caseworker told me Mia's statement was clear, consistent, and heartbreaking. But then something unexpected happened. A week after the CPS visit, I got a call from Dana. She'd been contacted by another parent, a woman whose daughter used to go to the same tutoring group as Liam. She had heard what happened through her own circle and wanted to talk. Dana arranged a call. Her daughter had once come home from Valerie's house with a bruise too. Same story. Said she got too loud while playing inside and Valerie lost it. The girl never went back and the mother hadn't reported it. Said she didn't think anyone would believe her. Valerie had a way of making herself look like the responsible adult. Now she wanted to help. We filed to bring her in as a witness. It wasn't just about Mia anymore. There was a pattern. When the police finally interviewed Valerie, she played dumb. Claimed Mia was lying. That she would never hit a child. She even tried to say I was unstable, trying to turn my daughter against her because I was jealous of their family dynamic. But she didn't know we had photos, medical records, a second witness, and then a break. Chris's mother-in-law called me. He said Valerie was panicking. That she had confessed, not in those words but close enough. Said she'd lost her temper and taught the girl a lesson. Her mother had recorded part of the call. Dana almost smiled when I told her. We filed for a restraining order. It was granted immediately. Valerie wasn't allowed near Mia or our house. Liam wasn't allowed over anymore either. And while I hated that, I knew it wasn't his fault. But I wasn't taking chances. Chris didn't call for days. When he finally did, it wasn't to apologize. It was to say Valerie was pressing back. That she'd lawyered up. That she was telling people Mia made the whole thing up for attention. I told him to be careful which side he picked. Because this time I wasn't backing down. It started with whispers. A friend of mine from Mia's school called one morning. She didn't even sound surprised, just tired. Said she'd heard from 2 other parents who'd had uncomfortable experiences with Valerie, and now they were asking questions. One of them apparently had tried to file a complaint months ago. Her daughter had come home from a sleepover crying, saying she didn't want to go back. No bruises, nothing visible, just fear. Valerie told them their daughter was overly sensitive. They dropped it. He'll know. Dana took their statements. Both women were willing to testify. One of them had even kept a journal, with the exact date of the sleepover and what her daughter had told her afterward. Dana said it was gold. I didn't realize how important that would be until the state attorney called us 2 days later to say they were taking the case. The report from urgent care, the additional testimonies, and the voicemail from Valerie's own mother. It was more than enough. The words were different now. This wasn't just about a slap. The DA used terms like child cruelty, malicious intent, pattern of behavior. I felt sick hearing it, even though it was exactly what I'd been fighting for. I didn't want Mia anywhere near these words. But I needed them to be real. Because this woman had built her life around a lie. That she was a good mother, a respectable wife, the trustworthy one in the family. And no one ever challenged her. He'll know. And then came the moment I hadn't expected. Chris showed up at my door. No warning. I almost didn't open it, but Mia wasn't home and I needed to see him. He looked hollow. Not angry. Not defensive. Just broken. He said he'd overheard Valerie on the phone with her sister 2 nights before. He thought he was asleep. She was ranting, saying she should have hit the girl harder if this was the thanks she got. Then she laughed. Said she wasn't going to apologize because it was just discipline. Chris told me he sat there in the hallway for a long time after that, listening to his own heartbeat. Realizing he didn't know who he'd married. Then he asked something that took the air out of the room. Did I think she'd ever hurt Liam? It hit me like a punch. I had never said it out loud, never even let myself think it. But I could see it now, clear as day. The temper, the way she'd talk about him sometimes like he was a burden. Like he was someone she had to manage instead of love. If she could hit someone else's child for doing better in school, what did she do to her own when he didn't meet her expectations? Chris didn't say much else. Just that he was moving out. He'd sent Liam to stay with his parents. He said he was sorry. Really sorry. I believed him. But it didn't fix anything. The charges came down 3 days later. 2 counts of child endangerment, 1 felony, 1 misdemeanor. Valerie was arrested at her house. She looked stunned, like none of it made sense. Like the world had turned on her unfairly. She was released on bail, but it was already over. The court issued a protective order against her. CPS filed an emergency petition, not just to keep her away from Mia, but from Liam too. I didn't ask for that part. It happened on its own. And it told me everything I needed to know. Then came the calls. Cousins, aunts, family I hadn't heard from in months. Some of them were supportive. Some told me I was overreacting. That kids lie, or that I should have handled this privately. One even asked if I was trying to ruin Valerie's life. I didn't care anymore. I wasn't trying to ruin Valerie's life. He did that herself. I was just making sure my daughter never had to see her again. Mia asked me that night if Valerie was going to jail. I told her probably. She looked up at me and said good. Then she went back to drawing. No big scene. No questions. Just peace. And it broke me a little. Because that's how long she'd been holding her breath. Like she was finally safe enough to exhale. But I wasn't done. The trial was coming. Dana said Valerie had hired her own attorney. Someone who'd built a career on painting mothers as victims of vindictive accusations. That didn't scare me. I had facts. I had statements. I had Mia. And I was going to bury Valerie in the truth. The first court date wasn't even the real trial, just a preliminary hearing, but I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. Dana warned me it would get ugly, and she was right. Valerie arrived looking polished, calm, even smug. Her lawyer, a sharp-looking man with gray hair and wireframe glasses, acted like he was prepping for a celebrity case. Chris sat on the opposite side of the courtroom, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the floor. Liam wasn't there, thank God. The judge went through the motions, confirming the charges. Valerie's lawyer tried to argue that the felony should be dropped right away because the incident was exaggerated. The prosecutor shut that down fast, outlining the medical report, the witness statements, the prior concerns from other families. Valerie rolled her eyes like she was listening to a boring documentary. Then came the surprise. Just as the judge was about to move on, the prosecutor said they had obtained additional evidence that morning. Evidence they hadn't known existed until a few days ago. Dana leaned forward. I mirrored her without thinking. It was a video. Security recording. From inside Chris and Valerie's own house. Apparently, Chris had forgotten that he and Valerie installed a small camera in the hallway 2 years ago. Originally to monitor Liam and the dog when they weren't home. He told the police about it during his second interview, not thinking it mattered. But the police subpoenaed the footage anyway. They found what they needed. The prosecutor pulled up a still image first. It wasn't graphic. It wasn't violent. Just a frozen moment of Valerie leaning toward Mia in the hallway. But the body language said everything. The angle of her arm. The way Mia was pulled against the wall. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't exaggeration. It was real. Valerie's face drained of color. Her lawyer stood up so fast his chair screeched. He demanded to know why this was being introduced without warning. The prosecutor calmly explained that the footage had been authenticated minutes before the hearing began and was now legally admissible. Then the audio clip came. Not the whole thing, just a few seconds. Valerie's voice, unmistakable, sharp and irritated, saying, "Don't you ever walk around here bragging again." My stomach twisted. Hearing it out loud was different from reading it in a report. The courtroom went silent. Even the judge looked stunned. Chris's head dropped into his hands. Valerie finally cracked. She blurted out something like it was taken out of context. The judge warned her to stay silent. Her lawyer grabbed her arm to shush her, but she pulled away from him and said she never meant to hurt anybody. Loud enough that everyone heard it. Dana wrote something on her notepad and slid it to me. She just admitted it. The judge rescheduled everything for a formal arraignment and granted an extended restraining order. And then he added something I didn't expect. Because of the new evidence, the prosecution would be adding an additional charge, intentional harm to a minor. Valerie didn't walk out of the courtroom looking smug anymore. She looked like someone who had finally realized she wasn't untouchable. We left quietly, but before I reached the parking lot, one of Chris's aunts stopped me. She hugged me and whispered that she had always suspected something was off, and she was sorry for not speaking up sooner. Another family member texted later, saying they were praying for Mia. Slowly, the divide in the family started to shift, this time in my direction. But the biggest surprise didn't come until that evening. Chris called and said he had gone back to the house to grab some things for Liam. And while he was searching through one of the drawers in Valerie's home office, he found something. A notebook. Liam's handwriting. A list of rules he had written for himself. Rules like don't make mom mad and don't show her my tests if they are bad and don't talk too much when she is cleaning. Then the one that made Chris break down on the phone. Don't cry if she gets upset. I sat there gripping the counter listening to my brother sob for the first time since we were kids. He said he didn't know. He said he should have known. He said he failed his son. And in that moment I realized this story was no longer about revenge. It was about saving every child she had ever scared into silence. And the trial hadn't even started yet. Court felt more like surgery than justice. It wasn't fast, it wasn't clean. It cut deep and slow, exposing everything. But this time I didn't flinch. Valerie came in each day dressed like she still believed in her own performance. Crisp blouse, hair done, eyes forward. Like the version of herself she had sold to everyone for years might somehow carry her through this. Her lawyer stuck to the same script. She was stressed, she had no prior offenses, it was a moment of poor judgment, and Mia had misunderstood her intentions. But that argument didn't survive the first morning. The hallway footage was shown in full. You could hear it, that shift in tone from passive to venom in her voice. The way she moved toward Mia. Even though the hit itself wasn't caught on camera, the build-up was worse. You could see the coldness, the control, the intent. People in the gallery went quiet. The judge didn't react, but the jury did. Then came Liam's notebook. Chris had turned it in not as revenge but out of guilt. He testified about how he found it in Valerie's desk drawer. The prosecution entered it into evidence page by page. Dana sat beside me watching the jury more than the words. On the screen they showed one page. Rule 6. If she's mad, don't speak until she says. Rule 8. If I get a bad grade, hide it. Rule 12. Don't cry. Crying makes it worse. The courtroom felt colder after that. Valerie's lawyer tried to dismiss it. Said kids write dramatic things, it doesn't prove abuse. But then the prosecution brought in a child psychologist who explained what that list meant. That it wasn't imagination. It was a survival strategy. Next they played Mia's recorded interview. She never cried during it. She didn't sound scared. Just quiet. Careful. The way she described the moment in the hallway, how she wanted to show Liam her test score, how proud she was, and how quickly it all turned. How she remembered Valerie's voice in her ear, telling her not to flaunt herself. How it wasn't the first time, just the first time she'd left a bruise. One of the jurors wiped her eyes after that. And then came the text message. Valerie had sent it months before to the other mom, the one whose daughter left their house crying. Dana had been sitting on this piece of evidence until the perfect moment. The D read it out loud to the court. If parents don't discipline their kids, someone has to. Kids today are too soft. The room went still. Valerie didn't even look surprised it was brought up. It was almost like she forgot she had ever said it. She looked hollow. Chris testified too. He took the stand and admitted he hadn't seen the signs. That he believed his wife over his instincts. That he failed his son. He held it together until the D asked him directly if he believed Mia was telling the truth. He looked over at me just for a second and said yes. Then he broke down. The prosecutor closed strong. They didn't go for emotion. They went for precision. They said this wasn't just about one child being hurt. It was about a pattern of control and violence masked as parenting. And Valerie had gotten away with it for years. They asked for 10 years. No parole for the first 6. No contact with minors, ever. Valerie's lawyer asked for probation. The judge didn't take long. 10 years in state prison. No parole until year 6. 5 years probation afterward. And a permanent restriction from working with, fostering, or even being alone with a minor ever again. Valerie didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She just blinked slowly as if this was happening to someone else. I watched her get led out of the courtroom in cuffs. Her hands weren't shaking. Maybe she thought this would still pass. Maybe she thought the world would believe her version even now. But it didn't. That night Mia and I sat on the couch. I told her everything. She didn't ask for details. She didn't ask about Valerie. She just looked at me and said, "So we can go back to normal now?" I said yes. Then she asked if we could go to the library tomorrow. She wanted to check out a book on geology. And in that moment, everything snapped back into place. The air felt clear again. And I knew this wasn't just the end of something. It was the beginning of the world she deserved. Thanksgiving was quiet that year. We stayed home. Just me and me. No big table, no folding chairs, no background chatter of football from the living room. I roasted a chicken because neither of us liked turkey, and we spent most of the day playing board games on the floor. She beat me 3 times in a row. It was perfect. And then 2 weeks before Christmas, Chris called. I hadn't heard from him since the sentencing. He texted me once. A short message thanking me for protecting Liam too, but I hadn't responded. I didn't know what to say to a man who had lived beside all of it and done nothing until it was too late. But now he was calling, asking if we'd come to his parents' house for a small dinner. No holiday drama, no cousins, no one else. Just us. He said Liam had been asking about Mia a lot. That he missed her. I said I'd think about it. Mia said yes before I finished telling her. So we went. Chris opened the door himself. No fanfare. He looked older, like he'd aged a decade in 6 months, but lighter somehow too, like the weight he'd been carrying had finally been acknowledged. Liam ran out from the kitchen and hugged Mia like he hadn't seen her in years. They disappeared down the hallway, probably to talk about school or Minecraft or whatever else they used to bond over. We sat in the living room. His parents brought out tea, then gave us space. Chris didn't circle around it. He just said he was sorry. But not the kind of sorry people say to get it over with. He told me he had been afraid. That part of him had seen it, little things, but he let himself believe Valerie's excuses. That Liam was dramatic. That Mia was showing off. That I was too protective. He said he'd seen her lose her temper before. That once, when Liam had gotten AC on a math quiz, Valerie had made him sit at the table without dinner until he finished, proving he knew it. He said he remembered thinking that was harsh. And then he did nothing. That was what haunted him, he said. Not what she did. What he didn't. He told me that finding that notebook was the worst and best thing that had ever happened to him. Because it was the moment he stopped defending her. The moment he started seeing his son clearly. He said he's in therapy now. Liam too. He doesn't let himself forget what happened. He doesn't try to explain it away. And he said something I'll never forget. You saved both of them. You didn't just save Mia. You saved my son from a life I didn't even realize I was forcing him to survive. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't moved, I just didn't have the energy for tears anymore. It felt heavier than crying. Like the full weight of the last year was settling for the first time. We ate. We laughed a little. Mia and Liam disappeared into the kitchen for dessert, and Chris showed me a picture Liam had drawn in therapy. It was him and Mia standing next to a big red volcano, smiling. He said apparently, Mia is the reason Liam wants to start doing better in school. I told him to hold on to that. Before we left, Chris walked us out. The night was cold and there was frost on the car windows. He looked at Mia, then back at me, and said the one thing he hadn't said until now. I believe her. Every word. I just wish I had believed her sooner. Mia didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She slipped her hand into mine and we went home. And for the first time in a long time I wasn't carrying the weight alone.